So today I wanted to talk about something that I'm very fond of and something that I'm really passionate about because it helped me grow in my faith, which is apologetics. Um, the term comes from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, that says, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts." Okay. And be ready always to give an answer to every man that asks you for a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. I don't want to make you look all the way back and forth, so you guys try to not, I don't know, break your necks or something. I don't want to be responsible for any injuries that might occur.
Bring their phone out on camera, selfie mode. Maybe just look behind you.
Well, this is vanity. But anyway, today I want to talk to you briefly about understanding why apologetics, why defending our faith matters, why it is important. And we'll just get a brief overview of the common arguments one can use to justify their beliefs, give a reason of the hope that is in us. Let's first start with some motivations, some whys, because again, as I try to repeat again and again, whys are important. And we find ourselves in the situation where the concept of truth is being eradicated. People believe in your truths, my truths, what is true for you, not true for me. And in that framework, Christianity, faith becomes just mere opinion, another social club, another hobby, yoga on Thursdays. I enjoy using that analogy for people who join Christianity for the fun of it and not for the truth of it. Believing that truth is something that one just constructs for themselves. In that situation, we find that virtue and good things are being eliminated, are being reduced to, again, a matter of personal preference. Truth becomes relative and moral standards, they collapse. I like that section in Proverbs when it says, "There is a way which seems right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." That's Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12. And it is increasingly true in our days. And without those eternal standards of morality and truth, well, life seems to lose its meaning, seems to lose its purpose. We see that in all of the depression and mental health polls and research that people are reporting mental health issues more and more. And Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 20 kind of describes that situation, the unbearable misery of life without God, that we all go unto one place, that all of us are of the dust and all of us turn to dust again. This is a pretty terrifying picture. If you meditate on it, if you really go to the end of the worldview that is not that does not entail God. And some of the numbers, actual numbers, statistically speaking, polls show that only 6% of American adults have a biblical worldview, which was 10% in 2020, and now it's only 6%. Among millennials and Gen Z, belief in absolute truth has dropped to around 30%. The rest of millennials and Gen Z apparently think that all of it is relative. And 20 years ago, where more people identified as believers, they might not have acted out their beliefs to the full extent. They might not have been living it out, but today people don't even assume that as the starting point. And I wanted to demonstrate what can happen in a single generation to showcase the power of demography by giving you a couple of examples. If you please break your neck this one time and look at the slides, I want to give you two examples of China and of Japan. So in 1960s in China, the fertility rate was 6.4 children per woman, the average fertility rate. Today, it is 1.09 children per woman. And if everything remains the same, by the year 2100, China is projected to lose 650 million people. Their population is going to shrink by 650 million people. That is tremendous numbers. Working age population will drop by 200 million in just 10 years. So in 10 years, China will lose 200 million workers. And all of that changed with one policy decision, the one-child policy that China implemented. Japan in 1950, again, if you break your neck to really contemplate on those numbers, in 1950, the median age in Japan was 22. Today, it's 49. And 1 in 3 Japanese people are now over 65. Schools are closing, towns are becoming abandoned, and all of those things, they come from just one policy, one cultural shift, and in a moment, everything becomes different. So even though it might not feel urgent right now to protect and compete for the faith, for the worldview that we have, if we wait a little longer, it might be already too late. 64% of Christian young adults say that the church hasn't prepared them to engage with non-Christians. So whenever we face challenges or objections to our worldview, we are often unprepared to answer. And it's okay if it just affects your interlocutor and they feel like they have won. They can feel whatever they want. But if it affects you as well and you leave your faith because of that, well, that is scary. So there is sort of an internal crisis besides the cultural shift as well. And that is why apologetics comes in handy, and it is important to equip yourselves with tools that can help affect culture so that we can safely go through days, not scared of this whole China or Japan situations where, the youngsters of tomorrow, the whippersnappers of the day after might not be Christians anymore. We have to engage with culture, and apologetics allows us to do that reasonably and effectively. It also strengthens us in our own convictions, in our own belief systems. This is very personal for me. Even before coming to faith, apologetics helped me see the reasonableness, is that a word? The reasonableness of the Christian belief. And as I walk in the faith further, it helps me grow stronger and stronger in the belief of God and of the truth of Christ. So it is not only for the culture, it is also for you when life gets hard, when those feelings build up. It can help you stay strong and pass that truth to the next generation. So let's move on to the quick overview of the things that we might be talking about over the next few weeks as I prepare for those Wednesday groups. I wanted to present today just a general roadmap on how apologetics makes a case for Christianity. There is a logical progression that makes your communication more effective. Usually, people start broad. First, we need to establish that some God exists before we go into the Bible and before we go argue for the Christian faith specifically. Then we try to build upon those steps and create a cumulative case for the existence of God and for the truth of Christianity. And once that is out of the picture, once that's done, it becomes quite easy to point to Jesus' resurrection and establish the truth of Christianity. So I'm going to reiterate. First, we answer the question, does any God exist? Does some God exist? Can we at least acknowledge the existence of something supernatural, something beyond the material universe? Then we move on to kind of a personal aspect of the Christian God, because we're going to hopefully today get into the fact why establishing a personal God is important. Then we try to answer a question whether God has revealed himself somehow in history to us, because yes, God may exist, God may be personal, but he might not have revealed himself, might have chosen not to reveal himself. And then once that's over, once that's done, we can safely move on to the truth of Christianity. But to be honest, for me, what has done it is the first part, whether any God exists. Once that's done, pretty much you don't have any other option but to go for Christianity. But let's take it step by step. So all of the arguments for faith kind of form two big groups: the philosophical arguments and the historical arguments. Philosophical arguments just means we are trying to understand the world around us using certain principles that we agree upon. And based on those certain principles that we agree upon, we can try and guide people into the direction that we want them to go, like the existence of God. So first, going back to our framework, establishing whether any God exists, the so-called cosmological arguments come in handy. Cosmology just means, how everything is. Why is there something? Why is there a universe? Why is there an earth? Because it could have been the case that there is nothing, just nothing. We're not here to experience it. There's just nothing. But no, we see that there is something. In reality, we can experience it. We can perceive it. So, two basic questions. Again, if you allow yourself to break your necks a little bit and pay attention to the screen, there are just two questions that lead us in the direction of God. Is the universe eternal? Did it exist for eternity, or does it have a beginning? Well, atheists will try and twist themselves out in a pretzel, or twist themselves in a pretzel, trying to deny the beginning of the universe. But I think it's pretty much established that it did have a beginning. Okay, so if it had a beginning, we have to answer the question, did something cause it to begin? Did something cause that beginning to happen? Or it just came from nothing? And again, you can see your interlocutors twisting themselves in pretzels, trying to say that nothing caused it. It's just there. It existed. We don't need to ask why. It's pretty obvious that something had to cause the beginning of the universe. Imagine yourself walking down a forest with your friend hiking, and then you stumble onto a tennis ball, lying under a tree. You wouldn't just walk past it. You would probably wonder where it came from. That's a pretty logical inquiry that you might have. The same with the universe. We go through the forest of reality. We see a universe, and we try and ask ourselves, okay, where did it come from? How did it appear here? And then we move on from that. And we use the definition of the universe to point to God, because universe is the beginning of time. It is the beginning of space. it is the beginning of matter, then something that had caused it to start, something that had caused it to begin, has to exist before time, has to exist before space, has to not be made of matter and energy. And well, that sounds a lot like God. Other arguments in that that can point people to God behind the universe in that section, in that framework, are teleological arguments or arguments from design. I hope we'll have a chance of diving into it a little later. Or the existence of morality as a thing that points us to a God. Again, probably not going to have time to dive too much into that today. Then we move on to, if you remember our framework, to proving that God is personal. It's not just some timeless, immaterial, non-physical thing that caused the universe to exist. Because I want you to think of a number, not a specific number, about the number as a concept. So numbers are not material. You cannot go into the forest and stumble it onto a number under a tree. You cannot lift up a rock and find a number under a rock. Numbers are abstract. They transcend the physical world. And an atheist might suggest that, maybe there is an object that had caused the universe, yes. But we have those kinds of objects, timeless, spaceless, numbers. Well, numbers are kind of passive. They don't do much. Even if it is something like a number, immaterial, abstract, well, morality cannot come from a number or from some object like a number. It is personal. It is not just a principle, because if that, let's say, a number caused the universe to exist, or something like a number, well, that's just how things are, but not how we ought or should behave. Yet we feel like there is something that does make us behave in certain ways, that stealing is wrong, shaving cats for fun is wrong, and giving up your seat on the bus is good. Moving on, we then again narrow it down to proving that God has revealed himself in history. We can examine the claims of miracles and understand that if there is a God, if there is a immaterial, non-physical thing that has a personal agency, that has a personal aspect to it, we can acknowledge that, yes, probably it is reasonable to assume that it can break certain natural laws, intervene in them at least. And finishing off with the most narrow claim that Christianity is actually the thing that best describes that God, that power. Today we will just stop at the case for the historical case for the resurrection of Jesus, because as Christians we believe that it's not enough to believe in a God or a spirituality or a common underlying principle that is like a number but not a number that caused the universe to exist. We believe in a personal God that has revealed himself in Jesus Christ, including. So in order to understand the historical case for Jesus and to make it sink, we first need to approach it with the right framework, because atheists will often demand proof of that. And, well, everything depends on definitions. And if someone asks you to mathematically prove the existence of God, that's probably hard to do. But making a good guess is good enough in court if you have enough corroborating evidence. So this is called an inference to the best explanation, when we try to explain all the facts that we have on hand with a certain theory that best matches all of those facts. So imagine you walk into your home, you find that your front door is open, there are muddy footprints in the hallway, your TV is gone, your 3D printer is gone, and your neighbor tells you that they saw a stranger with your 3D printer walking away. Well, the best explanation for that would be a burglary. Could there be something else? For sure. But the burglary explanation explains why your front door is open, why there's muddy footprints, why your 3D printer is gone, and your neighbor's testimony. Something else could be happening, but this is pretty good for the evidence that we have. So when we apply that to Jesus' resurrection, we see that we agree on 3 points of evidence. That he was buried, that he died and he was buried. That the disciples and some other people have firmly believed that they have seen Jesus alive after his burial. And we have an established fact of the emergence of faith. The Christian faith emerged. People who believed in it were firmly convinced and were willing to die for it. So we try to come up with explanation to account for all of that facts, to explain all of those facts. Maybe the disciples lied. Okay, but it doesn't explain those people who have gone through excruciating deaths to defend and to proclaim Christ. The most popular theory, I think, is mass hallucination, the secular theory that the disciples and the 500 people that Jesus appeared to hallucinated the appearance of Jesus. Well, a mass hallucination is a very peculiar thing. How grieved you must be to hallucinate someone. It would have to be pretty severe. And Jesus appeared not only to his closest friends and family, he also appeared to the 500. And those people probably have had less experience with Jesus than even the apostles. But it is very rare, it's non-existent, to see testimonies of people who experience hallucination, grief-induced hallucinations of non-relatives. So this explanation kind of falls short and doesn't account for all the facts. But the resurrection theory does account for all of it, for those minimal facts, for the dramatic conversions, for the transformation of the disciples, for the empty tomb, and for the rapid spread of Christianity despite persecution. So this is it for today. I was hoping to give a general overview. Again, we move on from the establishing that there is a God, to then establishing that he is personal, to then establishing that he has revealed himself, and then we establish the truths of Christianity, the claims that Christianity makes. Hopefully we'll get to dive